Welcome to Old Man Blerd. Hi, I'm John, and along with my friend Terrance, we make up a pair of lifelong geeks who happen to be black, over 50, but are certainly nerds first and foremost. The Alpha Geek and the Omega Freak. And we welcome everyone. And by everyone, we mean nerds, blerds, and bleaks, cosplayers and role players, geeks and freaks, Marvel zombies and distinguished competitors, Trekkies, Star Warriors, Batmaniacs, and Spider fans, Warhams, Whovians, AFOLs, adult fans of Legos, Tolkienites, Weeaboos, Supernatural hunters and otakus, Ava geeks, Bro Stars and Sis Stars, Pokemon trainers, Potterheads, Bronies, Whovians, Browncoats, and Scoobies, and all nerd properties in between. Because we are over 50, we've seen a thing or two and have experience, long experience, with a lot of these properties. So thank you for listening to Old Man Blerd.
Hello. Soon you will have sound, Terrance, once you are unmuted. Oh, there you are.
Yes, I was wondering. It's like, damn it, now what?
You know, it's kind of funny because every one of our podcasts starts that way. It's like, hello, are you there? Oh, there you are.
Yeah, if it's not me, it's you. Rarely you, but still, it's just like, oh, come on.
This is true. Well, welcome, everyone, to yet another episode. I think this is the 12th. The 12th. We're in double digits of Old Man Blerd. We are two 50-plus old geeks who of
I
the
prefer to say half a century.
Yes, of the African American persuasion, who've seen a thing or two, been to a thing or two, been around the block maybe once, twice, 10 times, on various nerd subjects. We ruminate and reminisce as well as equivocate and complain. So there you have it.
You have to tell them the last part.
Old Man Blerd. So what nerdy thing have you been up to for the last 7 days? Or this week?
Got me a Switch.
You welcome
Got me a Switch.
Welcome to 2016.
Wow. Ouch. Ouch.
You know, that's I shouldn't throw any shade because I'm always like a generation behind when it comes to all of those things. Because I still am rocking the PlayStation 4 and 3.
I was gonna say I was still rocking the 3, so I
yeah, and I have a Switch. I still have a Wii. I did have a Wii U, but I think I traded that for the Xbox One or something like that. I don't know. I traded it at some point. It was a good little console, but they hadn't refined the size of the handheld yet, so it was still kind of bulky. But I think I give it some love. But now you have a Switch. What games did you get?
Oh well, you know me. I got Star Trek Prodigy because I'm a geek.
Sure.
I got Prince of Persia because I'm a geek.
Sure.
I got Super Pets as in crypto because I'm a geek, and I got Skyrim because I'm a geek.
Yeah, well, the Skyrim definitely establishes your. Oh, well, you have Skyrim on a Switch. That I mean, I don't know. I suppose Skyrim on a PC, a power PC, that you designed yourself would be the height of.
Oh no! I got the updated edition.
Okay.
I heard rumors of it, but this is the updated edition. I actually can starve to death. I actually can feel cold.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. There you go. Yeah, I of the Bethesda games, because isn't that a Bethesda game? Skyrim?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Of the Bethesda games, I'm much more of a Fallout person. I'm not, it took me, it's kind of taken me a little bit to learn game companies. I mean, I always hear them. It's like, oh, Rockstar, oh, Bethesda, oh, whatever, Square Enix. You always see the logo at the beginning of a game, but I'm too impatient and just want to get to playing. But
Right.
I have started to tune into actual game companies in the last handful of years, and so Bethesda, they make some solid games. I am a big fan of the Fallout stuff. For whatever reason, even though I'm a huge D&D nerd person and swords and sorcery and all of the things, Lord of the Rings, Legend, Krull, Beastmaster, Conan, all the movies, all of the comics and such, I never really got into Elder
Elder
Scrolls
Scrolls.
or any of, yeah, I never did. I don't know why. I mean, I love Baldur's Gate. Baldur's Gate is, oof, that that game is crack. That game is super crack. It's like super crack heroin for anyone who likes
Well,
games.
let's ask the most important question: how are we represented? Is it like
You
oh,
can play. You can. I think you can colorize your 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 avatar.
I'm talking about the hair because you remember Elden
Oh,
Ring, no
well,
hair.
you, uh, I think it's a bit. We're still at early doors when it comes to black representation in video games. It's like if we get cornrows, we're lucky. If we get an afro, we're lucky. They seem to have mastered the fade, which you know, I I haven't had a fade since '91. So
I
they've
haven't
got.
been able to have a fade since '91.
So
Yeah.
I don't I didn't do a whole lot of digging. I play the warlock character, and he's black with like a weird gray telltale heart eye. He's really annoying,
Mm-hmm.
but and I probably my next playthrough I'll do something much different, maybe be the tiefling or whatever else. But yeah, I'm so used to not having decent hairstyles or decent representation. I just skim through making, through the character designer part of a game, which is sad because I've been playing video games long enough where, the white character was the default. So I'm so used to that and so conditioned to that it's like the idea of having options is like, oh, wow, there's options.
Well,
And
see, that's the how should I put it? The big difference of affirmative action, me being a true child of it, and then also a first generation syndication. You get to see how, like Mission Impossible, Greg Morse,
sure, I
being the
Spy
electrician
with
specialist, I mean, him
yeah,
being the electrical expert, because even in the games, this is where I'm going. In games, either they play off of us being a brute, we're the tank.
we're muscle, we're the tank, yeah,
Yeah,
usually.
I mean, Streets of Rage, love it to death, but Streets of Rage, we're just a tank.
Sure.
You know,
Or we're magical.
once in a while.
Once in a while, we're magical. Speaking of which, that magical Negro, I don't, that kind of dropped off of the movie scene real quickly. Probably because they
Yes, it
did,
did.
probably because they didn't actually spoof it. They probably played it straight. And I think Negro is a turnoff for, I don't know, virtually everyone who would watch a movie nowadays. Even the most intolerant person would be like, I don't know if I want to see a movie about that says Negro in it. But anyway,
Well,
you
that's
were
because
saying,
we're the last generation we're the last, as in us half centuries, are the
yes,
last ones they accept
sure,
Negro and we accept
sure,
color.
sure, and
But then by the same token, the next generation, or even how should I say, Generation Z,
mhm.
they're the ones that accept the N word, and my eyes change.
Oh, in terms of their frequency of usage,
Not
because
just that, the frequency of other people, other hues using it on you as
oh,
like a high
as a
five or something. It's like,
yeah,
I don't know how that man wound up on the ground. Do you?
I'm pretty evolved. I meditate and do all of the things, but I don't know that I would ever give anyone the pass to say that. I'm like, no thanks. I mean,
Like I said, I
around
don't know how
around
you wound up on the ground.
around family gatherings, I it will be tossed around, particularly during dominoes or Uno play. But
Mm.
um, I'm not. I may invite someone to the cookout, but I'm not gonna give them that ability to say the N word. Sorry, guess I'm not evolved. Um, but you were saying, yeah. So you were saying about like in terms of you know playing games and such that we're usually the brute. You were saying,
Right. But I mean, there are always exceptions. I mean, like Streets of Rage 3, the original character was the older brother and he was the tank. And
hmm
in 3, his brother is actually the quickest character in the whole game, you know.
well,
So,
I think that sometimes video game people, designers would make black characters or female characters actually stronger because no one would pick them, or many people wouldn't pick them, and so the people that did pick them would get the reward of having a little bit of a faster character or excuse me, a tougher character. So they would do
I,
that.
I can see that. But I mean, it's like you were saying, playing a person of color. I mean, that's one of the reasons why, even though it's blocky, even though it
Sure.
doesn't have the best graphics, I have a weakness for Buck Rogers in the 25th century. You know,
The old TV show with
no,
like
the TSR video game made into as an
oh
role playing game made into a video game
hmm
by Sega for
hmm
the 16-bit because one of the characters you just chose blank avatars.
oh,
One of the
okay.
characters was brown skin, and it's like, oh yeah, I am there.
Well, and what's interesting for those folks out there that listen to our podcast that aren't you know as dark as we are, um
Black are hue.
the of the BIPOC persuasion. I think that the way that I use the analogy for people to get people to understand why that kind of stuff is important in video games is the fact that could you imagine if you played a game and it was an awesome game and everyone liked it and the only thing you could be was varieties of black, like, I mean, I guess people do have that experience when they play you know any of the Grand Theft Auto games, but
Yeah.
the fact that the only BIPOC representation in video games is a crime game has never sat well with me.
You too. No,
and
no,
so
me too. It's
and
never sat
so
well with me too.
so I haven't really played those games, because I'll play Yakuza. I'll play the Yakuza games if I'm going to play a game like that, because I'm just kind of like, okay, nobody raises an eyebrow when it comes to black people being in those games, but heaven forbid you make a black character in a sword and sorcery game, and it's like, oh, it's the end of the world. It's the woke coming after our video games, and it's just like,
Ah,
and so it's just tiresome. And so Grand Theft Auto, I'm sorry, I just probably won't mess with you because if the only time I can see a black person in a video game is when they're committing crimes, doesn't sit well with me. And the
and
fact
they're
that
the
nobody,
stereotype.
yeah, and then the fact that nobody ever complained about that, but they will be quick to complain about any number of Star Wars games or any number of any other game, and complain about people complaining about there's no representation, just bugs me. It's like, why don't you, yeah, take that to St. Elsewhere. Yeah, so Grand Theft Auto, probably a great game. I'm sure I owned 4 or 3, and I was just like, hard pass. Just I think that I'm not super interested. I could go the rest of my life without seeing a black person ever play a criminal in any medium for the rest of my life, and it would still be too many that I've seen.
Well,
So,
my
soapbox, I'm off
thinking
my
is,
soapbox now, but yeah, that's I just, you know, I'd rather see us swinging swords or casting spells, frankly. So, that's just me.
my has always been two things. We have the people who are of color or who try to be allies, who embrace change just for the sake of change. And that's disturbing
Sure.
because story wise, it doesn't always go. It's more
Sure.
like a shut up piece, like a kid going to out shopping with their parents and say, I want a toy, I want a toy. And the parents takes them to Dollar Tree so they get the shut up toy
Sure.
instead of giving them the toy they would give them for Christmas. It's exactly the same thing.
Hmm.
We want a representation, but I mean, the best example is Billy D. Williams as Two Face. We all would accept that because number one, Billy D. Williams was a pretty boy.
Sure.
He was like our Tony Curtis. He was a pretty boy.
Sure.
So the idea of him being scarred and Two Face, in addition to him probably snapping like a crackerjack, that made sense.
Hmm.
But to just throw like a black Joker, it's like, what are you doing? Why are you doing it?
Well, I think.
Because
Go on. I'm
I
sorry.
was going to say, because if they do it the wrong way, then I mean, the best example, and this sounds totally horrible, but I mean, if you're black of a certain age, you know what I'm saying is true. Is that when certain tragedies happen at events like the Aurora shooting,
Hmm.
we all were praying quietly that Holmes was not one of our hue
Sure.
because
Sure.
we knew we could never go to a convention again.
Sure. Well, and I think, yeah, and I'm sure our Muslim slash Arab brothers and sisters were in the same boat because they're like, oh, please don't be Muslim, please don't be from the Middle
Oh
East,
yeah, when they see a
because
bombing or something, they're going,
it's like,
"Please, in
please,
God's
please.
name, let it be a white guy." Or
Yeah, and that's another thing. It's like, can you imagine? I wonder what it's like in some ways to be from a group where you just that never occurs to you. It's like I don't care if they're look like me. It's like I think every group that's a minority group, a BIPOC or LGBTQ, all of those folks are like, please don't be gay, please don't be black, please don't be Muslim. Whenever a shooting happens, which is really sad because
it is. I mean,
I
it
don't think
really is.
I don't think our white brothers and sisters have that experience. I don't think they're
I
going, oh
think the
gosh,
closest they
please
have,
no.
I think the closest they have is school shootings. I really do. I think that's the closest
I don't
because
know.
90% of the time, 90% of the time, school shootings is in the news. Them.
Yeah.
Well, I
Well,
say
I think
90%.
Well, they might have it also with serial killers because I don't think even though there's plenty of serial killers that are people of color and women, I don't think
The percentage is small.
I don't think that I don't think when the new serial killer is discovered that black people are going, oh, please don't be black. I mean, outside, I didn't even think they existed until the Atlanta child thing. Remember when that was going on?
Oh
And
yeah, that's one of the
your
reasons why my
parent,
parents moved out here.
yeah, my
That is
parents
literally why one of my parents moved out here.
Yeah, my parents were like, they're not sure if it's the Klan, so you need to kind of watch yourself. I mean, that was a pretty
Yeah.
scary period of time. But anyway, we digress. You have a Switch, you have Skyrim games.
And
I
I'm racist. I'm playing Red Guard, which is our
and
people.
sure. The nerdy thing that I did or have done in the last little bit of time, playing One Piece. I got my Blue Nami deck that I was experimenting with right when you called so we could start the pod. Uh, Still hard to get those cards. People have discovered they're worth some money, so they're just getting bought up like they're going out of style. Um, and I
Can I get
did
on that subject for a second?
Sure.
I, for one, hate geek poachers.
Poachers.
Geek poachers.
So like the
We buy
people
the
that
comic
buy
and they have no love of it. They have no care of it. They don't respect it. They don't understand. I mean, you and I both know 90% of our culture is materialistic and it's a thing. But what most people who aren't in our culture don't understand is a connection within those things.
You mean as far as
As
geek
I've said
culture
before,
being
you can go to well, like I told you before once of how we could go to a country where they chop off heads, no specific one, and we could be
sure?
getting ready to get our head chopped off, and I could see a guy with a Superman emblem, and I can say to Superman, it doesn't mean that he's going to kill me because he probably won't, but somebody in that group will. Might even like Spider-Man, but you get my point.
So you're saying
It's
the
the
white
connection.
sure that there's a widespread geek connection that's cross-cultural, and there is an element of materialism with geek culture because it's buying the statues, buying the collectibles, getting the collectible evaluated either through comics getting it graded or PSA, graded or whatever. You get your cards graded, get the limited edition print or lithograph. There's there definitely is
And then you see Pawn Stars who don't give a crap.
Sure. There's certainly an element of materialism to the geek thing, and the fact that it's ubiquitous. You can find a Superman shirt anywhere in the world, probably. It's true. I do think that the poachers, the tough thing about One Piece, and I feel like the One Piece card game is in a pivotal place right now, because I think that it's right at the place where the normies, for if we want to use a slur for non-nerds, the normies have discovered it's valuable, like they did with Pokemon during COVID. They figured it out, it's valuable,
Yes.
so they're buying it up and trying to flip it. But the problem is if a game is new and you're buying all the product, the people that would want to get the product to continue to play the game are going to just start to lose hope and say, well, I can't get these cards, I'm not going to play. And then the game dies.
You're right.
And the game
You're
dies.
right.
And so One Piece, I would argue, is in that place right now. It's like, I think they're on OP06. So the sixth, sort of phase or sixth wave of cards that they've released. And, those booster boxes have 24 cards in them, and how much those shops pay for those is like 60 something dollars, $63, right? So most early on, most of those places were selling it for 100 something, right? Now you have the first OPO1 that's going for 6 or 5, and these
We're
sets
talking about 100.
Yes, and these sets and remember, your card places are paying $60. They're paying retail. They're MSR, retail or whatever. The most recent set, OPO6, just came out, and those were going for $250 the day of release. Now, that's 4 times markup of what they're paying. There's just only so much you can deal with that kind of markup before you just to go, I mean, and there's a guy online who's created the simulation, a sim game for it. It's an OPTG. It's like One Piece, the card game sim. And he's done, he takes donations. You can be on his Patreon or whatever else. And you can play the game indefinitely there. You don't have to own any cards. And I'm sure if Bandai was smart, they would pay that guy to make that app and kick him some money so that he can make it even better. But it's a perfectly fine app, and tons of people are playing it. I'm sure thousands of people are playing it because it's how you test your deck.
Right.
But at some point, people aren't going to be able to get these cards, and they're saying that Bandai, I guess they print Dragon Ball and I think Yu-Gi-Oh too.
Yes.
And so their printers aren't able to keep up with. They didn't expect the demand of One Piece, but One Piece hit peak popularity probably about a year ago, I would say. And just has been huge since then with the live action and getting to Gear 5 Luffy, all kinds of different stuff has made it so that it just became huge. And so they couldn't keep up with the print. And it's now at this place where it's like, well, if you guys can't get product, and the only people getting product are people who are going to flip it for 10 times the price, no one's going to buy it anymore. And you're going to see the same thing you saw with Pokemon, where it's like, oh yeah, now you're having to charge just what you paid to get your money back, which I'm a fan of. Fine, screw you. That's lame that you're charging that much money. I hope it gets to the point where you end up having to go, well, this is just $70 and you can get it. It's like, because
Well,
that
I
just
understand what you're saying, because see, my big thing is there are the 3 rules: popularity, clarity, and rarity. And clarity is, of course, condition, so that's fine. And I don't care about any of that because what you're saying goes hand in hand with the Black Lotus legendary from the
Sure,
first, Magic.
sure,
And we can accept that, okay, this card turned out to be so powerful and it being a first print in the first
sure,
edition makes it, we could accept that.
sure,
What we can't accept is copycat flooding. We can't accept that, I'm going to make my own version. I mean, it's like from time to time with that saying, well, you made money, share the wealth. We like that, but we don't like seeing, I mean, they're funny,
hmm,
but we don't like seeing in this world, especially with microplastics, everything, the foreign countries do a rip off the Starman, and it's like Superman costume with a Star Trek character on the back forward and a couple other characters merged so they don't have to worry about licensing. You're like, okay. I mean, it's cute, as a collector, like, okay, they're trying to make money, exploit, but again, it's the poaching.
sure.
And we
Well,
we we're tired of that.
yeah, well, and I think that, I feel like I feel like in this economy, I feel like you can't really completely. I mean, there's always going to be, some guy who's got a ton of money who has nothing but time to buy, 20 or 30 of booster boxes of a thing or whatever else and just
Right.
sit on them until 10 years later when somebody's like, "Oh, I remember that." And then they have to pay $5,000 for what they were initially selling it for 500 when they paid 63. so
Right.
so yeah, and I think that there's a certain level of disillusionment, I think, with geekdom that I'm kind of dealing with. Maybe that's what we might need to deal with the talk about in this episode is just sort of the depression of geekdom, geek foibles, geek pains, because that's just a real drag that you want to patronize a thing that you're interested in, and because of commerce and because of capitalism, which it is capitalistic, you're buying stuff, whatever else, that you end up having to not be able to enjoy it because there's so many people that don't care about the intellectual property. They just care about making money off of the intellectual property. I guess that's kind of what Disney does.
Exactly. Because I mean well, speaking of Disney, that one we could talk to you for a second later. Or we can talk about no, I don't care. But if you've heard about that subject off the path here for a second, the wokeness of, and they call it wokeness, of the Silver Surfer being the female in the movie, Fantastic
Oh
Four.
yeah. Well, they have her being Shala Ball, you know. Here's the thing. I mean, gosh, ladies and gentlemen who are listening to this podcast, we definitely are always beating the same drum, but it is a bit tiresome because to me, um, I am not. I'm a huge Fantastic Four fan, arguably a bigger Fantastic Four fan than anybody complaining about it. Because anybody complaining about it, the Fantastic Four didn't even have comic books coming out in the last handful of years. They had to restart the whole thing after a hiatus. Uh, so if you were reading during John Byrne's run in the '80s, okay. Or you were reading the Kirby and Stan Lee stuff in the '60s, okay. But in general, Fantastic Four, it's a small group of people within the small group of people reading comics. So to me, not that big a deal. Making it Shala Ball versus Norrin Rad. I mean, I like Norrin Rad because he was just your first. What would you call him? He was your first sad boy character.
I guess you could say he's the first pacifistic Buddhist like superhero
Well, he was
as
what
far
do
as
they
that cosmic level.
sure, he was gothy. I mean, he was your first he was your boys don't cry cure kind of weepy boy. He was always ruminating about the moral implications of what he was doing, even though he was super powerful. I mean, admittedly, he genocided any number of worlds before he got to Earth and had this crisis of faith. Uh, but
And that's
peak,
the truth. I mean, that's the other way. That's what was beautiful about him, and is.
sure.
And
And
when they change the character, you're like, are they going to have the same thing, or are they going to
sure,
try to do something else? Because it is it is one of the things I have said to you in previous conversations. We need to, lack of better term, unite as far as the fans go. Not so much to say Disney or Discovery, Warner Brothers, you don't do what we like, we're not going to buy you. Not that, but sometimes to make them go, hey, why are you really doing this?
Well, and
You know, and
I think it's just, I mean, the thing I find that's painful about it is it's very cynical. And arguably it's doing the actor or actress that gets thrown into that role a disservice, because then they just have to deal with all these, you know, uh, anti-woke
hateful.
crusaders and hateful people talking about, well, it can't be Shalabal, it has to be Norm Rad. And that young woman, she's just getting a role in a Fantastic Four film. She's not, you
Oh,
know.
let's go back to the Star Wars last trilogy. Miss
Yeah,
Tran. Miss
yeah,
Tran, it was her first big role when
yeah. And
she was Vietnamese,
they
and
just
they
tortured that girl. They just
and she
tortured
didn't
her.
deserve that. She didn't
No,
deserve
not
that at all.
No, not at all. And it's like, and to me, I'm sorry, I would have to stand up and loudly proclaim. I would say, okay, if you're like such a Fantastic Four fan, what's the first issue of Galactus? What's the first issue of Black Panther? When was the first time that, Black Bolt appeared? I mean, come on. It's like Fantastic Four fans, I highly, highly doubt there's a Fantastic Four fan younger than 45. I just don't think there is one. I mean, because again, like I say, there have been off and on for years not even having a series. And they just did stupid things by making, Sue Storm, the Invisible Woman, dress up like uh Lady Death, basically, or
Well, see,
Purgatory, or any of those bad girl comic books of the early 2000s. It was like it's been mismanaged for so long. I highly
well,
doubt
what I have to say
anyone
about
that
that
young
is
is reading it.
one of those, one of the things that got me is I've been a part of Fantastic Four, not gonna lie, since the Byrne era and the
Yeah,
Austin era. So okay, and you know, I didn't mind the costume changes until the four as a number four cleavage. That
yeah.
one is
Remember
like, okay,
that?
what's the practicality?
Yeah, it
I
was
mean,
like,
I don't
what?
mind the crop top, okay, because like we've discussed before, Legion of Superheroes, they had a whole bunch of crop tops, they had a whole bunch of cod pieces for men. Hey, I don't mind that, but the four cleavage was just like,
Yeah, it was like
why?
it was a cutout showing her cleavage where the forward goes. It was it was clearly people at Marvel going, we got to try and sell this book, and people like hot women in hardly any clothes. Let's give it to the Invisible Woman to look like I said, like Lady Death or Purgatory, or Dawn, or any of these sort of hypersexual characters. Actually, Dawn wasn't hypersexual, but Purgatory and Lady Death certainly were. And it was ridiculous because Sue Storm was a classy character, her defined as both a strong woman and a woman that was married, that had children. There was
Yeah, we didn't we
no
didn't we didn't mind the cleavage from the point of view of her doing a mother mom
the
makeover, but damn,
the idea that she was wearing knee-high boots, or not knee-high, they were thigh-high boots,
they were
with a
thigh high.
leotard with the cleavage cut out in the center. It was terrible. It was terrible. And like I say, I would go to anybody complaining about her being cast as Shala Ball and say, okay, I've read hundreds of Fantastic Four comics. I highly doubt you've read one.
This
So
is one of the times we need to ask for the great
yeah,
God of Fantastic Four.
we need
We need to
to.
call Wayne.
Yeah, we probably should. Wayne of Time Warp. Yeah,
Yes,
Wayne.
because
Wayne.
he's got an autograph. He's been a fan since he was a kid. We
Uh,
need to get him. How
yeah,
about this one?
Wayne. The owner of Time Warp Comics in Boulder. Great friend of ours. Friend of mine. I don't. You've met him and know him, don't you?
Yeah, yes, we're
Yeah,
friends.
yeah.
But but
I'm friends with him, and I actually stood in line at Comic Con for him to get uh, a drawing of Silver Surfer. Like, it was a long line. We were together. He had to go do some stuff. I said, "I'll hold your place. I'll just stay." I wasn't getting anything out of it, but just doing him a solid. And to get a Silver Surfer uh, drawn piece from, I forgot what the artist was, but he gets Silver Surfer, but done by various artists, which is what I was doing a little bit with Spider-Man. I would get artists who
mhm.
maybe hadn't drawn Spider-Man or had maybe once or twice to do a Spider-Man thing for me so that I could have just original artwork that was all Spider-Man from different artists. But yeah, we could use Wayne because like I said, and Wayne is like 60,
70,
65, 70.
70
Yeah.
something.
I think he's
And
early
he is
70s if
a
he's 70. He's early 70s if he's
yeah,
70s
he's early 70s, early 70s.
or
I
late
remember
60s,
when
one
I
of the
went
two.
to the it was either the Tiger Con,
Mm-hmm.
yes, I'm dating myself.
Sure.
And he went and got Stan Lee's autograph for Fantastic Four #1. So I
Yeah.
think he can talk.
Yeah, but I mean, these people that are like, "Oh, Shalla Ball," it's like, come on, bud. Were you reading the Buscema? I've never known how to pronounce his name. I've only read it. Buscema,
Hmm.
who did those?
Basima.
Or it was no, was it John Romita
It was,
that was doing those? No, it wasn't John Romita. It was It was maybe it was John Buscema that was doing those early Silver Surfers, his first independent series, where it was just pages and pages of him just being an emo boy. It was a silver emo boy, is what the Silver Surfer was. I did like the Ron
and I
Lim
mean,
run of Silver Surfer. I liked that. That was good too.
and see what people don't understand is that
Marshall
when you
Rogers
are
as
a
well.
fan, of superhero movies or comic book movies, one of the biggest things is casting fit or genetic casting. You know, in Fantastic Four, the first Fantastic Four movie in major theaters, not the Roger Corman, basically the cast was perfect. Reed Richards looked like Reed Richards. You
You know,
know,
I didn't have very much of a problem. Now, some people, I mean, I had a vague problem about Jessica Alba being cast in the Fantastic Four movies, the recent ones, the fairly
yes.
recent ones. There's been a few Fantastic Fours since then.
Well, there's
Um,
the one afterward,
yeah,
basically, but you're right.
but and the only reason why was because they just made her. They gave her blue eyes. They gave her blonde hair. They really tried to Anglophile her, Anglo, whatever the
And I
word
was
will
wondering
be,
why she stopped acting.
Anglo
Was that series?
Anglo eyes herself. And it was just ridiculous. It's like if you're gonna cast Jessica Alba, just have Jessica Alba be Jessica Alba. That was dumb. It's like if you're gonna make her like give her bright blue contact lenses and blonde hair, and she still looks completely like a Latina. It was like, okay, why? And then have her related to Johnny Storm, who was played by which of the Chris's?
Evans.
Chris Evans. I always have. There's so many Chris's in superhero movies.
Yes, yes.
Chris
He is
Chris
the
Evans.
superhero,
See,
everything.
for those of you listening to this, isn't your first rodeo of Old Man Blerd. We will always forget one thing. I forgot Chris Evans. Yes. Why do that? Just have her look like she looks. If you feel like she needs to be blonde and blue eyed, just cast someone accordingly. You could have Rebecca Romaine would have been perfect in that role, but they, I guess, had her lined up for Mystique, I guess. But she would have been a perfect Sue Storm. Not attached to the race of Sue Storm particularly, but if you're going to make a big deal of her being blonde and blue eyed, just get someone blonde and blue eyed. Or otherwise, just have Jessica Alba be Jessica Alba. There's no point. I mean, it would have been fine if she just had her look like she looks. But then but see, that tells you something right there that uh, before all of this, everybody complaining about casting, I don't know if I heard that much about Jessica Alba. I heard some people grumbling like, "Oh, Sue Storm's blonde," and they just then made the concession of making her blonde and blue eyed. But
Well, see, the thing that gets me is when they sit up there, and I mean, like you had people complaining about Superman and no underwear and all these other things. It's like, guys, you're not thinking the time period. That's the
yeah,
best way to put it, the time period.
yeah,
Because a good example is Black Black Cat, Black Cat. No,
mhm.
Wildcat. Wildcat is his name. Wildcat from DC.
Sure, the one that's
And
like
and
the
they
the
had him with
pugilist.
right, and they had him flying with Mr. Terrific. And
Uh-huh.
this was the modern Mr. Terrific who's black.
Yeah.
And he jumped up and said, "Okay, you're not bad for a colored, but he's not." They were offended, but they don't think about this man is
He's from
literally
World
from
War
World War
II.
II.
Yeah, he's from World War II.
And he meant it as a compliment. He didn't mean it as an insult.
Sure, sure,
But
and
I
it
mean, a
was
lot of people were complaining about it. But that to me, that was perfect for the character.
yeah,
It's not
that made
someone
sense.
like born last week.
Yeah, it made sense. I mean, I think I think what has been great about Captain America is that he's always been open to regardless of race. I mean, Falcon was his partner for all kinds of years and everything else. So he's always been representative of America being what America can be, which is this place where it didn't matter what you look like. It mattered what you did or how you did it. Uh, but yeah, that makes sense for him as a character. But it, I'm not. I I mean, I'm a huge Fantastic Four fan, and I'd much rather just go. Let's see how it goes. I mean, I do feel
I'm
like,
more concerned about Galactus. That's what I'm concerned about. I'm not even concerned about Silver Surfer. I'm concerned about Galactus, and I'm concerned about the Molecule Man or Molecular Man. Are they going to have him in
Molecule
it?
Man. Yeah, I
Yes,
don't know. If they have Galactus, is he going to be a giant friggin'? I would
I
love
would
for him
say
to be that. I would love for him to be a
right.
giant dude building a huge machine on a size skyscraper. I think that would be great. He's a kaiju
Exactly.
essentially. He's essentially a kaiju. So yeah, I mean, I always
Yeah,
thought
instead
that
of the
that was
Stay
the
Puft
best thing.
Marshmallow Man.
Yeah, I would think that's the best thing about Galactus is he's this giant dude who just didn't even care to acknowledge human beings because he had to eat. He's like, I gotta eat your planet, bud. And apparently, the planets that can sustain
Yeah,
life are tastier and more nutritious for him. They're his. We're a soy planet.
right.
We're a we're
Exactly.
with essential vitamins and minerals. But yeah, I don't care about that. I mean, I don't. I would say it's a bit cynical that they're doing it. I'm kind of like, why do that? You don't have to do that. I mean, I don't care. You're still having it sort of be in continuity because it's Shallow Ball. And Galactus has had one of his most uh longest running heralds was Nova, and that was Johnny Storm of Human
Carol.
Torch's girlfriend who did what the Silver Surfer did for his planet and sacrificed herself to become his herald. So,
Hmm.
he's had a
Well, they also
woman
did with
as
Carol Danvers too.
with Binary when she was Binary or what?
Yes, yes,
I didn't know she was
exactly.
a herald for
That's what she
Binary
became.
because I know she
Yes, she
became
was.
I know she became Binary in that X-Men run that was still it was Cockrum and Claremont. Like when Dave Cockrum came back to the book after Byrne left. That was
Yes, the bullpen, as they used to
that
call it.
yeah, that was when Binary made an appearance. I didn't know that she ever became a Herald of Galactus. I don't doubt it because it feels familiar to me. Look at me, Mister.
Yeah, because I mean,
I'm such a Fantastic Four fan, and I don't remember her being a Herald, but I
well, if it
don't
makes you feel
doubt
any
it.
better, Dazzler almost was one. Almost was
Yeah,
one.
yeah, and there's plenty of what ifs. If what if such and such became a Herald of Galactus?
You know,
There's been a few of those. So it doesn't matter to me. His Herald is unimportant. Although the Silver Surfer, um, my guess is what they're gonna do is they're gonna weave in her story with uh Johnny Storm. That'd be my guess. Like they're trying to do what the Silver Surfer did with Alicia Masters when he came. Remember,
hmm
he came and Alicia Masters was blind and she touched him in some sort of emotional way and he was like, "Oh, I got to fight against Galactus cuz these human beings are worth it." That whole thing. I think they might be combining that part of the Silver Surfer story with the Nova part of the Silver Surfer story where Nova was a girlfriend of Johnny Storm. So they'll probably make that Silver Surfer fall in love with Johnny and then decide that she's going to fight against Galactus. That'd be my guess.
the
Now,
only thing I have against them is do Doctor Doom right. They had a good actor last time.
Yeah, he
They
was the
really
perfect
did.
actor. He was the perfect. I was stoked when that guy forgot his name. Second,
Julian
forget.
something.
He was in Nip Tuck.
Yeah, Julian something, I think was his name.
Yeah, he was a
Julian.
great Doctor Doom. Doctor Doom is their main dude. He's their Lex Luthor for sure. He's their
Well,
great
not just that. The only thing
their
I didn't like
Joker.
about it was, like I said, it made sense for what they were trying to do, but it took away from what he was.
Sure. But if they have Doctor Doom do what Doctor Doom tried to do, which is steal the Silver Surfer's powers, they could weave that in there too. But my guess is that they're gonna tie this Silver Surfer, played by a woman actress, to probably hooking up with Johnny Storm in some way, shape, or form, and then them fighting Galactus. Which, fine, I guess. I mean, I don't, you know, to me, the design of Silver Surfer, there's an element where I could see why people would want him to be a guy because, it's all sleek lines and everything else. But, I think they'll probably do a fairly decent job. Um, but, I
This is
just
also a
feel
case of missed opportunity because
Sh-
while I like Pedro, I really do,
Pedro
having the
Pascal.
guy yeah, Pascal, the guy who played Mr. Fantastic in Madness, his wife is Emily Blunt, so she would have been perfect Sue Storm.
So who is playing Sue Storm in this? I have
I
forgotten
don't
that
know, but
too.
I'm saying the two of them, they were already a couple. So that natural flow of them being a couple would have been perfect. And she
Yeah,
is blonde.
well, I think that the missed opportunity was having what's his bucket from The Office, who is also
Yeah,
in.
yeah, that's the one I'm talking about.
Oh
His
yeah, no,
wife is Emily Blunt.
Yeah, Pedro Pascal's not married to Emily Blunt. It's the gentleman from The Office that's married to Emily Blunt.
Yeah, the two of them would have been great.
John something K. You know,
We're doing it again.
I know, right? Well, it's late in the day. Um, I am going to let me get. I'm looking it up now just because there's someone who's just being driven nuts. John Krasinski.
Right.
John Krasinski. Yeah, he would have been like he was in the what was it?
Madness was Doctor Strange too.
Yeah, yeah. He would have been. Oh my God, he would have been perfect. I begged for them to do that, but they
And
didn't.
Emily Blunt would have been perfect as Sue Storm.
Yeah, it would have been awesome. I don't think I think that what happened, if you want my honest opinion about Fantastic Four, is that the Marvel movie, the superhero movie thing has soured in Hollywood for actors and actresses. Which I believe actually now that I should use the proper terms because I think they're just calling all people who act actors. Anyways, the it soured in Hollywood, and I think they couldn't get it cast. I don't think they could get it cast. And Krasinski, he's got some credibility, I think. And it was, I mean, the fan love for him being Mr. Fantastic was huge because he is the most Mr. Fantastic you'll ever likely see. And like you say, Emily Blunt would have been perfect as his wife, but they I think people, I mean, when you hear about like, oh, they're looking at Adam Driver. Oh, Adam Driver has declined. Oh, they're looking at such and such. Oh, now he's declined. When you hear that kind of talk about a movie, that is a movie in trouble for some reason. And I think that the Fantastic Four was in trouble, A, because it's the Fantastic Four, and B, I do think there's some superhero burnout in the actor community.
Well, I agree with what you're saying as far as the superhero, but it is a burnout. But it's the same thing as we said before. The reason is twofold. One is the strict regiment of locked in the contract, and then two, more important than that, is discovery for the rebootitis.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, don't hold on to that house or boat because you're not going to keep it because we're going to let you go to the next movie.
Mm-hmm.
That
Mm-hmm.
they've done that too much, and that's where we as fans need to get rid of shareholders.
Sure.
I'm not saying that they shouldn't make money. God bless them, make money. But when you start interfering with the very thing, like having Frankenstein just be someone that woke up from a coma, that would totally change the Frankenstein story, wouldn't it?
Sure.
You know,
So
or
the
having
house.
Dracula,
Go ahead.
be a, I would say have Dracula be a being who just has a bad allergy, so he has to drink blood. I mean, those are realistic, but it would still change the concept.
Sure. The
And
House
and that's the
of
mouse.
Mouse. Yeah, the House of Mouse is making some moves that aren't so great all the time. I would love to defend them on some of these things, but I think that they just tend to um I don't know what their motivation is. Can you hold
I
on
got a good one for you following this path.
hold on 1 second. Hold that thought. All right, I am back. Had to.
So I was reading an article this week
Uh-huh.
that was very interesting, going in the vein of the House of Mouse. They were
Mm-hmm.
talking about once Disney took over Fox,
Mm-hmm.
they did something that made sense but was harmful.
And that
They
is
they got on the Family Guy crew about their parodies.
mm-hmm.
That's it. You know, because
Really?
before when they were Fox, this Fox, they make fun of the mouse, they make fun of this, they make fun of that. But when they got bought by Disney, they were basically their scripts had to be checked, and that took away a lot of that.
Yeah, well, and I think that's, I suppose in the future, if every science fiction property is to be believed, there'll just be corporations. Uh, at some point, there'll be the great galactic war between Amazon and Disney, and I suppose the Disney soldiers will be wearing white gloves, but and red shorts with big yellow buttons. But I think, the problem I think with Disney might be in be a bit that they have a bit too much power, I think, and not a lot of competition, really. I mean, if it's a childhood property, Disney owns it at this point. They own Lucasfilms, they own Marvel, they own Disney because, all the Disney stuff. Uh, Pixar, I don't know what their relationship is to Pixar at the moment, but
They
they
own
have.
Pixar, and they've been investigating getting into anime since Eisner came back.
Sure, and if they end up buying like a Crunchyroll or something like that, which they have the money to do, there's just not going to be a lot of diversity in thought and with Disney, I think. And the big thing that people argue about Disney has a lot to do with some of the things that have revolve around misogyny and sexism, in that Kathleen Kennedy has had some statements that male nerds have taken much umbrage with. Um, and some of the casting decisions have, for some people, been problematic and virtue signaling, in some sense. uh I don't want to wade into that, because to me, cast who you want to cast, whatever, doesn't matter to me, if it makes sense. But there is something to be said that when you are making properties where you are like where you're making a point of doing casting that is inorganic, like you didn't have to change it from Nornrad to Shalabal, and it feels a bit cynical in a way. Like it, and that's, I think, the thing that I mean, I'm getting it from a different angle. Like, I don't care if you change the race or gender of a particular character if it seems to make sense. Like we were talking about Billy D. Williams being Two-Face. That's not an issue. You change the Joker, then there's some element of race that's involved with that. You could do Clark Kent as the Superman animated series did, and no one thought anything of that, and those were great stories. So sometimes it's like you say, you've made a big point about it being organic or inorganic. Uh, I don't, I don't want to, I can't read what people think when they do some of these casting things, but there is a point where, not in a crappy way, like, why are they doing this? Not in that kind of, I'm not approaching it from that angle. I'm approaching it like, well, why? What are you trying to do this to generate dialogue so that the crazy sexists online can get mad at it, and that generates more conversation, and then that somehow, you know, makes your movie more viable. I mean, for a Fantastic Four fan, I just would like to see the Fantastic Four be on the screen, you know?
No, I understand completely what you're saying, and that's
And
one of the things to get me is like I've said to you many times, is how Toho to me is better one from the point of view that they can have Godzilla out in America and still have Godzilla on Netflix and still have their own because
sure.
they know their fans are smart enough to embrace Godzilla
Well, and
and pick and choose the one they want.
I would argue that things like the Kaiju series is Godzilla. Speaking of which, Godzilla, the newest one, is still #1 at the box office, right?
Right.
Um, I think Kaiju fans just like to see the big monster. I think when it comes to these comic book properties, people get real attached to the race or gender of certain characters and certain properties. And, I don't feel like I have that. However, I am now starting to become maybe cynical enough about capitalism that I'm like, oh, are you doing this to generate buzz? And then that feels cynical because then you're not actually trying to do anything that's of service to people of color or women. You're actually it's just a different kind of exploitation.
Oh yeah. I mean, to
I
me,
mean, now,
that
all the anti-woke crusaders, I mean, some of them are, you know, uh, some of them are just racists and sexists and homophobes. And I would argue a sizable
it's
chunk,
not going to change today or tomorrow. They're just
yeah,
that way.
that's just that way. But I do think that there needs to be some dialogue, some inquiry about, okay, I don't have a problem with it being Shalabal versus Norn Rad, but what is your reason for doing it really? Because if you're doing it in service of um, having strong female characters, Sue Storm is one of the strongest female characters in all of comic books. I mean,
Oh, I would totally agree. I mean, to me, when
easily,
that was
easily.
one of the biggest mistakes they made in Marvel, and where I'm going with it is they played off, even though we know basically their pixels are fake, as in Scarlet Witch's obsession with her kids.
Hmm.
The mother character has always been Sue Storm.
Yeah, like if you were to, as a longtime Marvel guy, Marvel zombie, I guess, there are certain characters that just hold that title in Marvel. And Sue Storm has been the strong, not weak, not domesticated, but strong woman mother character in the Marvel Universe, to the point where all of the other uh characters that are women in Marvel defer to her in that way. And partially it's because the way that Marvel set up their comics, they were the first family. They were the first superheroes, which is the mistake I think making Iron Man the first superhero in the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because the Fantastic Four was first in continuity and in actual time. They were published first. It was Stan Lee's first thing of like, I'm just gonna write comics that I want to write. And so all of the other super heroines have looked to Sue like, oh no, Sue's been in the game a long time. And so, you you already have, if you were to have done it correctly, in my opinion, uh, the strongest character that's a woman in Marvel Comics. I mean, Storm's in that conversation for sure. Uh, I'd say Ms. Marvel kind of is in that conversation, but I still would say that Sue's over and beyond the most dominant, strongest uh, female character in Marvel Comics. Once they stopped having her be. Uh, Hold on one second. Let me deal with this little dog. Sorry about that. Dogs transitioning from inside to outside. Always a little bit more communication. But I think that so a real strong female character. So if you're casting Shalabal because you want yet another strong character that happens to be a woman, okay. Uh, but again, it's just I would hate to feel like it's a cynical move. I would hate to
Well, that's the
feel.
same argument with Captain Marvel. And what I mean by that is that, a lot of people were upset about Captain Marvel, and I was upset to a degree too, because Captain Marvel was the first superhero to die from doing his job,
Hmm.
you know, because he died from cancer.
Hmm.
When they did Death of Captain
Still,
Marvel, he died from cancer.
still one of the best graphic novels was the Death of Captain
And so
America,
so that
Captain
that
Marvel.
that should have been the way they started Captain Marvel and then went to Carol Danvers. No one didn't want Carol Danvers. It's just that that would have set a standard up of
Well, it was
realism of it.
yeah, it was passing the torch. It was really passing the torch, and so the thing I think that is difficult is that I think that there are things that are very much a product of their time, a certain level of sexism, a certain level of racism, a certain level of misogyny, a product of its time. But then there are other things within the comic book medium that aren't really that, even though, like, yes, Captain Marvel, the original Captain Marvel was a man. I don't know that that was particularly a product of its time so much as this is let's just make a character. When they made Ms. Marvel and they made her Ms. MS, like Gloria Steinem's magazine, it was because she was sort of being a feminist icon superhero during the Bronze Age. And he did pass that on to her. And she was in Avengers from, gosh, I don't, early 180s, 170s or so. My first Avengers comic was 200,
Yeah,
I believe. And, she was in that. And terrible story where she ended up sort of basically being raped. But, anyways,
yeah, that was the storyline. They don't need to put it in a movie.
no, her, like, yeah, Immortus basically essentially raping
The
her.
Beholder,
And yeah,
was it
and
the Beholder?
it wasn't the Beholder, it was Immortus, who is also talk about confusing continuity. Immortus is also Rama Tut, who's also Kang. But don't,
All
yeah,
right, yeah. No
yeah.
wonder I don't know what
He's
it is offhand.
yeah, so
I remember the story though.
when you get into Immortus, Kang, Rama Tut, it's like getting into Hawkman in DC. It's like, is it which Hawkman is this Hawkman? It's just as convoluted. Anyway, so and it was that character was fine, and it was great, and then it had been written and to various degrees of success and failure over the course of her comic book career. I mean, rogues from the X-Men's powers come from stealing Carol Danvers' Ms. Marvel powers and memories.
And that's how they were able to give it back, thanks to Galactus with the binary. That's where that came from.
Ah,
But
yeah.
my thing is one of the missed opportunities is that Scarlet Witch, like I said, is this fake fantasy mother.
Mm-hmm.
When she got ready to take on Mr. Fantastic, it would have been interesting seeing her fight Invisible Girl or Invisible Woman. It
Sure.
would have been because that's always been her strength is that no, I'm protecting my family. That's when she's been able to fight Galactus and win. That's when
Sure.
she's been able to make Doctor Doom go, yeah, I'm going to go home now. You know,
Sure. Well, and I think that the good thing about the modern age of comics is that they stopped calling her the Invisible Girl and they started calling her the Invisible Woman, which was a good change. And they also understood, oh wait, she can make any construct of any sort that's invisible. She could put a, you know, air bubble in your brain and you'd be done. So, really if she was a mutant, she'd be an Omega level mutant. So yeah, already a strong character. So for me, yeah, cast it however you want. I'm gonna go see it probably anyway, but not approaching it from a sexism or a misogyny point is that are you doing this in some weird commercey way, uh, and doing that, and that It's an unforced error. It's kind of like when I was talking about Doctor Who. It's like, you can have. I think it was great having a trans character in the new Doctor Who's episodes, but then making Sir Isaac Newton happen to be from of East Indian descent. It says why there's no real. That's a real
It's
person.
like having Martin Luther King be South African.
Yeah, it's like
It really is. It's like having Martin Luther King be South African.
yeah, it's like, and I think that's where this whole woke anti-woke thing puts me in such a weird place, because to me, I have mostly written off the anti-woke people, not all of them, but most of the anti-woke people is just some form of sexism, racism, homophobia, transphobia. Okay, sorry if you're listening to this and you're like, anti-woke, you know, I now if you're approaching it like I'm approaching this Invisible Woman thing versus Shala Ball as and Silver Surfer, then I'm not waving the flag of anti-woke stuff. I'm just not going to do that. But it's like, are you just doing this for commerce? And then that makes me, I'm enough of a punk rocker to feel like I'm getting jerked around there. It's like you're jerking me a
Are you
little bit.
Punk Spider-Man and not telling me?
Hmm?
Are
Yes, I
you
am.
Punk Spider-Man? Not telling me?
Yes, I am. I actually have that Punk Spider-Man. I would love to write that, but no one would ever let me. You have to have a working knowledge of Bad Brains and the Germs and Fear and X and Black Flag and all those punk bands and the political things behind it, because I have, we got to stand against fascism. That's what the punks, until they were
And that
Nazi
was the
punks.
last words. That was the last words of John.
Right?
He
Yeah, right.
disappeared the next day.
Yeah, it's like they disappeared. They're going to extraordinarily rendition me. Uh,
You don't mess with Team Disney. What's wrong with you, man?
right? Well, and but I do think that the shareholders, that's a part of this, and the fact that they own so many intellectual properties that they don't have to do them correctly. They don't have to think about them. I mean,
And that's
in
that's
some
that's a
ways,
problem. I mean, that's the good thing with public domain.
yeah.
That's the good thing with public domain.
Mhm,
But the problem is, like, for instance, one guy had an article last week because they were talking about how the public domain of Bambi and how they showed a clip of the Bambi movie they're doing by the same people who did Honey and Blood. So
mhm,
they're doing Bambi, and Bambi looks like a moose, not a deer. A moose is how huge he is,
mhm,
flipping the car and everything. You're like, oh my god! But to me, the first thought I had was Deer Avenger.
mhm,
Anybody who's a video game age remembered that parody from the '90s.
mhm,
Because all the hunting games came out, and it was basically Bambi, saw mama get killed and developed intelligence out of that fear to learn how to use a rifle. And all of a sudden run around and mastered the hunting call of, you know, I have beer, I'm naked, and I'm a woman. That was the
mhm.
hunting call. All the hunters would come out and shoot him. I mean,
I think my favorite Bambi was Bambi
it
versus
was parody.
Godzilla. my my favorite
Oh
Bambi
yeah,
was
smashing, wasn't it?
yeah, Bambi versus Godzilla. Um, yeah, I don't know. Like I say, I think that we're gonna have to really kind of keep an eye on the House of Mouse, because I think that you know
Really,
you
when
don't
they
you
go into
don't have
animate,
to. These characters aren't sacrosanct. You don't have to treat them like fine china. But I do think that there needs to be inside of it a certain respect for what the story is. And if it
okay,
does, if you make the character Shala Ball versus Norrin Rad, okay, well, what story are you going to tell that you weren't going to be able to tell with Norrin Rad? And there could be a viable story option. I mean, it is an alternative. I mean, it's all multiverse anyway, but it's supposed to be an alternative Fantastic Four anyway. But yeah, what is the story you're going to tell? And if you're just going to make it so that she has romantic feelings for the Human Torch, uh, that just feels so
showing
tropey.
your age there, man.
It just
You
feels
just showed your age there. Just total color without your face.
it just feels so tropey. Like the only comic books I will here's where old man Blerd comes in. The only comic books that I will allow for there to be any kind of romantic triangles in is X-Men or Spider-Man. You know,
Wow, dude.
everything else,
Wow.
everything. Hot take. I don't care about any other romantic entanglements except for the X-Men because, you know, Wolverine Jean, Cyclops Jean, Cyclops Emma Frost. There's
You wow, dude.
Rogue
Wow.
and Gambit. You know,
There's
you know,
You're
Mora
using the
and
age gap of Magneto.
yeah. Yeah, well, was there? I think there is a Magneto Rogue thing too, isn't there? I think there
Yes, there
is.
is. That was the
Yeah,
age
that's
gap. That
right.
was one of
Yeah,
the things.
yeah.
But to me, I where I'm going with is, you say this now, but God help us, they're dumb enough to try to get Dragon Ball Z, and they start changing it. I'm going to have to bury you, or One Piece. I'm definitely going to have to bury
Oh no,
you.
One Piece. The live action. They've been doing fine. Um.
I'm talking about Disney buying it and changing the story.
Oh goodness. Yeah.
See, your eyes totally changed there. There was not a like, oh, that'd be nice. No, no, no. That was, oh,
No.
hell no.
Well, because I don't think that their concern is the same concern as fans. You know, I thought The Mandalorian that was well handled. You know, I think that
Yes,
I need to watch Andor. I did like Obi-Wan. I heard
yes,
that Ashoka was good. Um,
yes.
so you know,
But you just mentioned everything that was not in the theater. And that was one of the problems they had because Supergirl versus Ray is the best way
mm-hmm,
to put it. When
mm-hmm,
they did the Supergirl TV show,
mm-hmm,
a lot of people versus Supergirl as in the movie. Supergirl the movie was traditional human, as in Supergirl was weaker and Superman was stronger.
mm-hmm,
Supergirl the TV show, yes, they were trying to push women finding their own strength. I'm not going to lie about that. And they create all these female characters. Not going to lie about that. But they also went the route that she can create life, have a baby. That's why she's stronger, so she could do it. That made sense. It wasn't just catering.
sure,
Versus Ray, she comes in, she automatically knows how to use the Force. She knows how to use the Millennium Falcon. And the only thing I give her is a Millennium Falcon because she's surrounded by all this junk as a character when he first comes along. So
mm-hmm,
it's like being around, your father's jalopy or something. You eventually understand cars, even if you're only under 20. So
sure,
that made sense. But even her telling him to let go of the mines, okay, that makes sense of her learning the force. But certain other things, she learned too fast, you
yeah.
know, for the
Well,
character.
yeah, but I
I mean, that
mean,
was plot armor all the way.
well, but you have to remember that, like, how long was Luke? Luke barely trained with Obi-Wan and trained for a few months with Yoda and bailed. He didn't get any other
Yeah, you're
training
right in
after
both
that.
cases.
So I mean, you know, let's be honest, Luke didn't have a whole lot of training either.
No, his was
He's just a
how should I
natural.
say,
He's
trial and error, just kind
yeah.
of
It's like,
learn as you
I
go.
mean, he was balancing some rocks for a little bit, and then he was like, "Oh, my friends," and then bailed. So, so,
But he
but I
paid a
guess,
price too. He kind of lost that left hand.
yeah, the only misfire I think with Rey, in my personal opinion, with the Star Wars sequels, was they should have made her go dark. They should have just had her made her go dark and had her not be related to Palpatine. That's all they needed to do. If they had done those two things, it'd have been great. And then have Kylo Ren go become good and bring her back to being good. That would have been great. And you know, after she say maybe killed Kylo, that would have been good. Have her go bad, have him become good, have him try to redeem her. She kills him, then has this psychic break, like, oh, what have I done? And then, you know, becomes good. That'd have been fine. That'd have been, but I
Yeah.
sometimes I think it's better to have those kinds of character arcs where someone goes to the dark side, you know? But anyway,
No, that one wasn't a bad one, which you're suggesting. But see, that's again like the Finn character and all the others. And this goes back to what we were saying about the blacks and go to foreign countries. Some countries they don't pay attention to the character unless it's of their racial nationality.
sure.
And that's a disservice to the story. I
Hmm.
mean, that's the one advantage. As much as we have made fun of it before when they say this is the end of the world and it takes place in New York and California, we do have a representative of almost every race when they say that in that scene. Even
Hmm.
they all are actually Americans, they might be from Queens. Still,
Sure.
versus some other movie, as much as I love the Godzilla movies, when they say the end of the world, they have one white American.
Well, it is the
That's it.
default, and just like we were talking about the avatars in these video games, it was the default. And I understand that it being I think if people understood from both sides, if people understood that it used to be the default, and it's not now the default, and people do like to see themselves, but it doesn't make one group better or worse, then maybe we could stop blowing ourselves up and doing all of the destruction that we do. It's fine that it's going to be shallow ball. You don't have to watch it. You can just read the comics. If you don't like it, you can just read the comics. You don't need to,
Well, isn't
you
that what
know,
we always say about the critics anyway?
yeah,
Is when it comes to movies, period. I mean, I I have a fascination with the dark or evil characters. I do. But I
sure,
don't go buy their movies. And when I do buy their movies, it's more of a curiosity. It's not that how much more gruesome can they make the character kill somebody?
right.
Or how much that? Because to me,
That,
to a degree, is like, okay, there's a pinnacle point where you showed your ultimate kill, and to top it all off, how much is it getting ridiculous that it's not the character anymore, it's the kill?
yeah, yeah. Well, like Terrifier. I mean,
Exactly like
we're
Terrifier.
we're both horror fans, but yeah, I have to admit that I don't have the stomach for Terrifier, I don't think.
I would say Terrifier is a good example of what I'm talking about. Exactly. It's like, it wouldn't be so bad if he did the kills and there was someone countering him. If
Well,
there was
and
someone other than, and I mean, other than the hero girl, other than the
sure,
hero girl.
the
I mean,
final
even if the
girl.
person had no, yeah, even if it wasn't someone that had the power to take him on, it just makes sense that somebody's like the girl in one of them, she tried to fight him and he threw acid out of nowhere. That showed his mystic ability. Okay, I got acid.
Okay.
Where if he had a straight fight, the girl might have had a chance.
Yeah,
We could have lived with her losing in a straight fight.
but the thing is he's just not funny like Freddy. He's not funny like
Oh,
Freddy. He's not crazy like Michael Myers. He's not
undead or a force of nature like Jason
yeah, he's just a weird clown thing. Yeah, I don't
that
know.
runs around
I mean,
and killing girls under the age of 30.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe we are old. I mean, I've watched
Speak for yourself.
I've
I'm not
watched a,
old. I'm older.
I've watched a lot of stuff. I mean, Texas Chainsaw Massacre doesn't bother me. None of the Friday the 13th bother me. None of I've watched Giallo movies. We're gonna do a spoof of Giallo in That's So Quantum when we get that finished. Um, so I'm not a shrinking violet from violence particularly, but I don't know. I just don't gravitate to the Terrifier franchise.
Well,
But maybe Disney will buy that. And then all he'll kill is just basement dwelling nerd types.
yeah, with flowers, razor bladed flowers.
He'll turn into a female clown and kill them all. Anyway, I guess we're not gonna solve it anytime soon. But yeah, the House of Mouse. We'll have to watch them. I don't know. I'll have to think about a title for this. The House of Mouse. But anyways, where can I guess we should wrap it up because it's been about an hour, a little more than an hour. Oh
Yeah,
goodness.
hopefully they can get bored with us and say, "Oh hell no,
Yeah, they're like, oh,
they're rambling."
they're talking about the woke thing again. No, this one's about Disney, and I don't know what we call it. The House of Mouse owns you. The House of Mouse and the lack of House of Ideas. Um,
That's what you say, and then we say part one, chapter one, chapter
right.
one,
Chapter
because
27
we're going
of
to come
the
back.
House of Mouse. Yeah, we'll be revisiting the House of Mouse, I'm sure, a bunch. But where can people find you, Terrance?
DrakeStorm@gmail.com.
And you can find me at drupgu108@gmail.com or that'ssoquantum@gmail.com. And hit us up, like and subscribe to us. Let us know how we're doing. We have no idea. We're now at a not a baker's dozen, a regular dozen episodes. And it sounds like my dog is going crazy, so I'm going to have to attend to him. But as we like to sign off, don't be a stranger.
Just be strange.
Yay! And we will see you in a week or two. Thank you so much for listening to us. Take care. House of Mouse wants you. Bye. Right?